Right now, somewhere on your phone, there's a number you check more than you'd like to admit. A bank balance, a stock ticker, maybe a wallet full of coins that don't even exist in physical form. And when that number drops, even a little, something in your chest tightens. That reaction is old, older than banks, older than money itself, older than writing, older than farming, older than the wheel. The question is, why does a falling number on a screen make your body react like you're being hunted? Let's start with the glitch. Deep in your brain sits a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Its original job had nothing to do with money. It existed to answer one question: is this a threat? For hundreds of thousands of years, not enough food was a threat, arguably the biggest one our ancestors faced. A bad season, an empty berry patch. That wasn't an inconvenience. That was a countdown to starvation. So evolution built in an alarm. Scarcity equals danger. Full stop. Fast forward to today, and that same ancient alarm doesn't know the difference between an empty berry patch and a red arrow on a trading app. Your brain still treats the number went down like a predator just stepped out of the trees. Same chemical response, same tightening, same panic. Here's the wild part. This circuitry evolved to protect you from hunger, not from losing digital tokens. But the brain didn't get a memo saying, "Hey, we invented currency. Please update your threat detection." It just repurposed the old hardware for a new problem. And that repurposing, that's the thread that connects a Bronze Age grain pit to your crypto wallet. Because somewhere along the way, humans found a way to make that survival fear stackable. Around 5,000 years ago, in the river valleys of Mesopotamia, something quietly revolutionary happened. People started storing value that didn't rot. Grain spoils, meat spoils, even livestock dies. But copper doesn't. Neither does silver. Archaeologists digging through sites in the ancient city of Uruk have found ingots and standardized weights of metal, used not just as tools, but as stored, transferable value. Think about what that actually did to the human brain. For the first time, that ancient hunger alarm had something permanent to point at. You didn't need a full granary to feel safe anymore. You needed a pile of copper in a jar buried under the floor. But here's the thing. The copper itself was never really the point. The copper was a proxy, a stand-in for "I will not starve." A physical object your amygdala could look at and go, "Okay, we're fine, threat neutralized for now." That's the hack. That's the moment survival fear became abstract. A pile of shiny metal isn't food. You can't eat it. But your brain started treating it as food security anyway. And once value could be represented instead of eaten or worn, it could also be hidden, hoarded, counted, and obsessed over. The weight in your hand changed. The psychological weight didn't. That safety pile instinct stayed exactly the same. It just needed less and less physical mass to satisfy it, which is exactly the door that leads to where we are now. Picture a single gold coin from 3,000 years ago. Heavy, cold. You can bite it to check it's real. Now picture a high-value digital token, represented by nothing but a string of code on a screen. No weight, no texture, nothing your hands can confirm. And yet, for a huge number of people, staring at that second thing produces the exact same internal reaction as the first. Here's what makes this so important. The object changed completely. The wiring underneath didn't. When that number climbs, the brain treats the moment a lot like it once treated a successful hunt, a reward worth chasing again. Not because your neurons were literally coded for spreadsheets and blockchains. Evolution obviously never saw that coming. But because the underlying reward circuitry is old and flexible, and it will happily attach itself to whatever your culture currently defines as resource. Copper, gold, paper. Now, lines of cryptographic code nobody can physically hold. Same. Yeah, I want to touch my Bitcoin too. Bad news, you can't. Your brain doesn't seem to mind. The vault moved from a buried jar to a server farm. The fear of the empty vault didn't move an inch. There's a name for what's really driving this, and once you hear it, you'll see it everywhere. Fear of the empty hand. It's not really about wanting more. It's about the terror of having nothing. And nothing exploits that fear quite like artificial scarcity. Limited-run digital collectibles. Meme coins that brag about having a fixed supply. None of these are scarce because the world ran out of anything. They're scarce because someone designed them to be, because scarcity is the exact lever that flips your ancient survival switch. Your brain doesn't ask, is this scarcity real or manufactured? It just asks, is there less than I need? And if the answer is yes, or even might be yes, that old alarm goes off. Here's the gut punch. The same instinct that makes you stockpile cash during rising prices today is the identical instinct that made a farmer 4,000 years ago start hoarding grain the moment a harvest looked thin. Same fear, same body, different century. You're not panicking about inflation. You're panicking about the empty hand. So how do you get out from under an alarm system that's been running for a few 100,000 years? You start by naming it. The second you recognize this reaction for what it actually is, a prehistoric survival mechanism reacting to a modern symbol, it loses some of its grip on you. You can't fully switch off an alarm that old, but you can learn to hear it going off and ask, calmly, is this an actual threat, or is this just my amygdala mistaking a red number for a lion? That question alone changes everything, because most of the anxiety around money isn't really about the money. It's about an ancient fear wearing a very modern disguise. So here's the full picture. It starts with a brain wired to treat scarcity like death. Then humans invented copper and silver, and that fear learned to point at metal instead of meat. Then paper, then screens, then code nobody can even touch. The object kept shrinking. The fear never did. And that number you check on your phone, the one that makes your chest tighten when it drops, that's not really about the number. That's a 100,000-year-old alarm, still ringing, still convinced you're about to go hungry. Understanding that doesn't make the fear disappear, but it does mean you get to decide whether to listen to it, or whether to just notice it, and keep moving anyway. Maybe that's the real difference between us and every ancestor who ever hoarded a handful of grain. We're the first ones who get to know why we're doing it. If this kind of thing fascinates you, stick around. There's a lot more buried in the way we think than most of us ever stop to notice.